The views and opinions expressed on this station do not reflect the owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Friday, the 5th day of March, 2021. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, and Linda's. I'm Jamal Hartman, along with Carla Zool and Jackie Lambert. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine. If you're watching online, share the link. If you're on Facebook, start that watch party. If you're on Twitter, retweet it. If you're watching on channel 82, let everyone know we're on. Just get the conversation out there to your network, and don't forget to like and engage with us. A great show coming your way today, as Economist Craig Simmons has been kind enough to rejoin us to continue the conversation regarding the budget. The daily poll is the few today. So number one answers only, no cheating. And I, just have to put that disclaimer in because.
Do you know that today is a record day for Mr. Simmons? What is he the first guest to do? I feel like some trivia in advance.
Oh, this is his fourth time coming.
That's right. He's our first guest.
She thought it was his third time, folks. Don't let her fool you.
Fourth. Look at that. He made the history books. Didn't even know it.
He is. He is. I was actually going to say third. Then I realized, no, it is his fourth time coming.
And the shortest guest to make a second appearance in the shortest amount of time. Woo, Simmons, he acting up today.
Hold on. Hold on. I think he's the second to come 4 times.
Well, no, of our regular. Nope, he's the first. Zach's 3.
Zach will be 4 next week.
Okay, well, next week Zach comes second, but this week Mr. Simmons is number 1.
Tamara was the first person to be on 4 times.
By 2 days. That's right, Tammy. Forgot her. And I still can't pronounce her name properly because I call her Tammy.
So Carla, she tried a trick question this morning, folks, and she got it half right. But we put it this way here. That is a good pickup, because having the quality of Mr. Simmons on this show to have these level of conversations, we definitely appreciate his presence and the information. So he is welcome to come 40 more times between now and the end of the year. I might have actually got that A in finance instead of that B+. I might not have had to go do as much tutoring. But
I was trying to remember whether or not he taught me at the college. I can't remember, but I know that he has been helpful. Like, I've called him for other stuff, and he's awesome. And I kind of wish I could go back and take his class, because I think he'd give me a deeper appreciation now if I understood the way he did things then.
Jackie, why does she set herself up like this?
It's okay.
She can go back, right? And I'm simply her thinking, well, Carla, the way technology works now, you ain't got to go back. You can just move forward and still do the class.
I'm done with school. Done.
Oh, yeah. I said that, well, however long I graduated. I'm pretty much with you. But we have a lot to discuss today, you guys. And obviously the important conversation with Mr. Simmons to be continued. But there's a lot of conversation, and Bermeems really put this out there. The article was first published on January 31st. Yeah, January 31st, 2021. And I think it's a conversation we should have. Now, Jack has already claimed her retirement. I mean, she won't even give us a chance, right, Carla? But here's what we're going to discuss, folks. This is what Bermeems actually shared this recently. It's the cost of a comfortable retirement around the world. And I just think with Mr. Simmons coming in and the kind of conversation we're having today, this is really ties in. But what concerns Bermudians, what concerns people the most from reading this? And I guess I should read a bit of the article rather than just showing the picture, huh? So this article was on netcredit.com. It was a blog post by Barbara Davidson on the 31st of January. And it just really speaks of the cost of a comfortable retirement around the world. And it starts off with a question: do you have $600,000 put aside for your retirement? Right? If anybody in our audience can put their hands up for that, please just welcome yourself to the next family reunion. We're claiming them. But key findings. Let's go through some key findings. Some key findings in this article. The most expensive country in the world to retire is for $100. Go ahead.
Take a guess.
The Jackster said it. Bermuda, where you would need 1 million. You got that?
Mm-hmm.
And don't even stop there. You still got to add a few numbers.
I'm not even going to say it. Like, oh my God. I'm just going to say 1 million. Let's round down. And Pakistan, the cheapest country to retire, at $182,018 to maintain the example lifestyle there. 14 years of retirement in the U.S. would cost $601,489.63, according to the metric of $40,917.66 per year, or $2,841.50 per month. The article also found that 125 countries where retirement is cheaper than in the US and only 13 that are more expensive. This is a title that Bermuda, in my opinion, should not be proud of. My question today is, how does this make you feel when you see where Bermuda's at on this chart?
Well, as the senior citizen on the Daily Hour,
yes, you are closer to that.
No, seriously. I claim it. No, seriously, being less than 20 years away, it says 64 to 78, right? So I'm 40, almost 47. And way behind financially. It's scary. And I'm here in the UK, and my plan was, once my youngest got in his 20s and on his way in the world, I would consider moving back to Bermuda, And I actually saw this article when it first came out, and I was just like, wow. And we all know, let's be for real, it's probably gonna go up in the next few years. It's not even gonna regress. So I guess I'll be just visiting Bermuda, because that's insane. And realistically, starting over from zero, which many people are robbing Peter to pay Paul as well, it's daunting.
Jackie, and this is not to say people under 35 don't think of this stuff, because I remember I had said something last year. We actually had a big discussion about preparing to be made redundant. People should be better prepared, right, for redundancy. And I think it was a frequent audience member, Charles H. Jeffers II, who said not only that, retirement also, right? And there was a thing in Bermuda last year where people were encouraged to dip into their pensions and so on. But Jackie, is this a conversation that younger people are having? Do they even have the conversation around retirement and pension?
Yes, constantly. I know you're on Twitter, so I know you see that people are constantly complaining about the cost of living. You have them arguing about moving to the UK, moving to other countries to have a more sustainable lifestyle. But at the end of the day, they're just trying to understand how they can move forward and stay in Bermuda. Like the Bermudian, they love Bermuda. They want to be here in Bermuda. They want to retire in Bermuda. But how? Because if you want to retire at a certain age, you have to have a steady income. And in order to have a steady income, you have to do something like, say, buy a property and have rental properties. But you can't buy a property because the banks won't allow you to buy a property, because you can't afford the down payment, but you can afford the mortgage payments because it's the same, basically the same amount as rent. But a lot of people are constantly saying that government has to sit down and look and find a way to help the youth, or my generation, to be able to afford to stay here. If not, they're looking to leave.
Well, I remember some years ago, I want to say one of the local insurance companies brought in some people from the US, and they were bragging about how Bermuda actually is one of the countries that prepares its citizens or residents better than anywhere else when it comes to pensions and retirement. And now you look at this, and I'm just going to go to the comments. Rick Olson says all the numbers are deceiving low. If you really want to enjoy your retirement, for example, want to go out to eat more than once a week, like he's right. Like in retire, this is based on retirement just being able to function and just pay simple bills, not the retirement we see plastered all over TV, like sipping a what's those things you all drink, margarita or
mimosa, mai tai,
all
a
that stuff
cocktail.
on the beach, right? Like all of that stuff. Like this is not that retirement that everyone dreams of. This is simple retirement. I would think based on just
Basics.
yeah, this is crazy. Tamara Richardson says Scuria is today with inflation.
Mm-hmm.
What will you need in 20 years? That million might only get what 250,000 gets you in 2021.
And you said 14 years, right?
Yeah, it did it between 64 and 78. And the thing of it is, even with the American stat, it said that at only 14% of the population between, I think they said 40 and 60, have this in savings. So it's like, it's scary. I always think about the everyday person. And I'm like, what about that person now that's barely making it? And they see all the numbers. How does that do for your mental?
Yeah. I think this, I guess, we have to find solutions to this, because I do wonder the people that are the decision makers that will have to deal with this situation. So, for instance, what do I mean? One of the saddest things that I have witnessed in my lifetime is elderly people who can't afford the healthcare they need, elderly veterans throughout the world who fought and represented their countries that can't get the basic necessities to take care of themselves, right? So imagine if that's the situation now, in another 20 years, what it's going to look like. But it's something else I wanted to address. And I think the guy's name is Baldi. I don't know if Baldino is his real name, but
Rainbow Jr.
Okay, right. But he posted something recently on Twitter that really shows the other side of this conversation that I don't think we actually discuss enough. And I've discussed it privately with people. And I think it's something that really has should have woken us all up in 2020. But he made a post, and I'm not quoting directly because I don't have it in front of me. He basically said everyone here is saving for retirement. And then bam, cancer.
Yeah.
The point is, it's like, where's the balance to enjoy our lives? Like, there's a certain group segment of the community, a certain ethnicities and races throughout the world that will really never get to enjoy life because they're being priced out of it. It's all good saying live within your means. It's really easy to say that at times. But I'll never forget when I moved to New York. I was living in Brooklyn. And you know how they have, everyone knows what a bodega is, right? Little corner shops sell, convenience stores. And I went in one of these one day. And I heard a gentleman, he must have been in the neighborhood for since he was a child. And now he had children and was raising his family. And he was speaking to the cashier behind the counter. And the cashier behind the counter says, how are you and the family? And yeah, I was eavesdropping like a Bermudian. Don't worry about that. That's not the funny story. So I'm eavesdropping as I'm acting like I'm picking up something. And his story really was the story of so many Bermudians. He said, look, man, I can't even afford to live in the home I've been all my life, now raising my children. I don't even get to see them because I'm working so much. And before you know it, I'm going to have to move out further outside the city just to be able to live. And as I move further away from the city, I'm going to have to pay more to get to the city just to work. And he broke it down, and it was like, man, this sounds like a Bermudian talking about how they can't afford to live in their country and maybe their homes. It's crazy.
As a mom, my daughter, she's 20, and she's like, when I finish university, I'm going to go home, I'm going to rent. And I'm like, why would you rent? Like, I don't even want her to leave home. And, but like when I was coming up, freedom, you go on your own, you pay your bills. And I don't want her to do that. I'm like, listen, we got to make a plan so that you don't have to spend, because it's crazy. And that's where I'm at now, is cultivating my children to think as a team, even because I said this the other day. I was going to sell my house. I was so frustrated and fed up. And this gentleman said, please don't do it. And I'm so glad that I fought it out and didn't, because what will our young people have? And she's younger than you, Jack. So it's like, it's scary to have to think about this stuff at 20, much less in your 30s,
Indeed.
To think about when you're 60s, 70s, are you gonna survive?
It is. Talent TJ Clark says, worrisome considering the underfunding of our government pension too. I did share the link, so everyone, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch, you can find the link where this article was. Thanks again to Bermemes. They were the ones who shared it where we got it from. And I'm glad that platform is sharing these kinds of conversations. It's more than memes, but an entertainment. This is information, and these are things that we definitely need to be discussing. Tamara Richardson says, today's conversation is even more critical than how much of our personal tax dollars are being diverted away from our savings and or investment to pay down our public gigantic and growing debt burden. So that said, we're going to get into the conversation with Mr. Simmons immediately following this news break and commercials by Carla. But wow, it's scary. And I just want to touch on something you said, Carla, because this, in my opinion, has been plaguing the Black community, especially for generations. And I remember when I was graduating college and people would shame Black women mainly, would shame Black men for still living with their parents, right? So you live with your mom, like da-da-da-da. And I never remember saying to this young lady up in Boston, like, and what's wrong with that? I would rather stay with my family and contribute than to go out and pay a bunch of bills. Yes, contribute, keyword.
Contribute is a keyword. There you go.
But go out and pay a bunch of bills and put myself in a hole that we don't need to. To me, the way toward what is often spoken of about generational wealth is literally going to start from the family unit. We can't be so eager, young people, to get out of the house. We can't be so eager to disrespect the ones who provide and want to offer us the opportunity. The way to generational wealth is to give within your family and to sacrifice that space you want to do what you want to do. But that goes for both sides, the parents and guardians, and also the younger person, the person who's benefiting. Generational wealth is not going to come by just being so quick to want to get out of the house. On to the news break, Carla, and we'll be back after the news break, commercial break, and Mr. Simmons in the house.
Shortly after 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday, March 3rd, police attended a two-vehicle road traffic collision on Middle Road, Warwick, opposite Warwick lanes. A male motorcyclist was traveling east along Middle Road. Upon hearing the sirens from police cycles on driver training headed in the same direction, the motorcyclist, who was attempting to make a right turn into Warwick Esso gas station, instead pulled his vehicle to the left, going towards a bus lay-by. One of the police bikes collided with the motorcyclist, resulting in both riders suffering leg injuries, which were not considered serious. Both the motorcyclist and the police officer received treatment for their injuries at King Edward VII Memorial Hospital and were discharged. Cheese doodles are also known as cheese puffs, cheese curls, cheese balls, cheese poofs, cheesy poofs, or sometimes corn cheese. They are made by a mixture of hot corn through a shaper and then dusted with that distinctive cheese flavoring. Without cheese, it's often referred to as puff corn. Different flavorings available include honey and salt, but the most popular type worldwide has been the cheese-flavored versions. Available in all sorts of shapes and sizes, pounds and pounds of this tasty and easy go-to snack are made every year and shipped across the world I'm sorry, to hungry snack lovers everywhere. Cheese Doodles Day is simple enough to celebrate. Just grab yourself a packet or a few of these just grab yourself a packet or a few of these delicious cheesy snacks and dig in. Turning to weather, the temperature in Bermuda is expected to reach a high of 67 today. Boston, Massachusetts will see a high of 31, and London, UK, a high of 44. That's your daily hour news break.
Cheese puffs, huh?
I'm on a diet, so I got excited.
Oh,
I ate some at like 3 a.m. the other day.
oh, that sounds very healthy. I'll have to get my
No
nuts in.
alcohol, no cheese puffs.
Oh, congratulations, Carla.
Started yesterday.
All right. I guess she's doing Lent a month late. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with Mr. Simmons to discuss the budget statement.
Good day, Medical House Doris speaking. Can I help you?
Medical House is Bermuda's leading one-stop shop for healthcare.
Medical House is a great resource for Lefroy. The service is excellent.
Medical House is best known for its uniforms and footwear. It has hundreds of styles of scrubs and nurses' uniforms for health professionals. Bermuda's top doctors, dentists, care homes, and the hospital choose Medical House for a wide range of products. These same professional quality products are available to you for home health care.
The biggest reason to come see us is that we specialize in these areas and the education and knowledge that we provide.
Medical House is on Millreach Lane in Pembroke, where there's private parking right outside the door. Call or visit Medical House today.
Welch's, producers of the world's best-known grape juice, have been based in Concord, Massachusetts since 1869. Distributed in Bermuda by John Barrett & Son, Welch's has become a household name. We're featuring Welch's 100% Concord grape and Niagara grape juices, distinctly delicious and heart-healthy, and ushering in bold new flavors. Welch's Super Berry Juice, combining the Concord grape with Aronia berries for tartness and mangosteen for sweetness, and Welch's White Grape Peach and flavored blend of white grape, pear, apple, and peach juices. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
All right, welcome back to the big show. Carla Zul, Jackie Lambert. I'm Jamal Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Lindo's, and our friends over at Channel 82, where you can also watch this and many other locally produced shows if you have One Communications cable. As stated, big show today, important conversation. We're going to continue the convo with Mr. Simmons. So let's bring Mr. Simmons right in. Good morning, sir. How are you?
All is well.
Oh, yes, it is. We hear you and you hear us. All right, let's get right to it. We have a lot more to discuss. We got some emails, we got questions, and I'm just going to get right into some of the questions that we received for you. What are the top two metrics or numbers that Bermudians should be looking at and understand in order to hold the government accountable with the finances?
The size of the deficit. So technical terms, there's the deficit and then there's the debt. So the debt is about 3.3 billion. That's an accumulation of all the deficits, the annual deficits that have been run up since the turn of the century. So for now, I would say the most important one is the deficit, the annual shortfall of, well, it's the difference between government spending and taxation. And at least since the early 2000s, we've consistently overspent. In other words, government spending has been ahead of the tax revenue that comes in. We came really, really close about 2 years ago. But you know, the government decided to kick the can down the road, believing that it had time to get its house in order, and up pops the coronavirus. And so it's going to be another 2, 3, possibly 4 years before that deficit is turned into a surplus. And once you get a budget surplus, you can begin paying down on your $3.3, $3.5 billion debt. So the most important metric by far is the deficit, the size of the deficit. It's about 125 million this year. Hopefully next year it gets smaller and smaller, and then turns such that we can begin the process. We start running budget surpluses. The other very important metric, this may be overly technical, but what's called the current account balance on the balance of payments. It's a record of the inflow and outflow of foreign currency in this country we call Bermuda. So typically, I think every year since about 1992, Bermuda has exported more than it's imported. Now, that may sound a little strange because you don't see cars or bananas, many cars and bananas leaving Bermuda going to the rest of the world. But Bermuda is a service exporting country. We export two things: hospitality services via tourism and financial services via international business. And in any given year, we will export north of $3.5 billion worth of services. And in any given year, we will import about $2 billion. And so we, have this surplus, what some people might call a trade surplus. To put that into context, the U.S. has not had a current account surplus or a trade surplus since about 1977. I think I got that right. The British have had maybe 2 or 3 since that time. So Bermuda as a country is in rare company as a country that exports more than it imports. It's probably the balance of payments, the current account on the balance of payments is probably the most underrated macroeconomic indicator that we have. And I think the reason why we don't look at it is because it's never been a problem. We've also always been flush with foreign currency. Bermuda is one of the few places on the planet where you could walk into a shop and give a Bermuda $10 bill, and it's not unusual to get, say, American currency as change. And that's largely because we're flush with foreign currency. Maybe I should stop and take a question.
Yeah. No, but this is good info. I think you've defined the terms as well, but I want to go through to like kind of just transition, and we'll come back to that, because another question someone sent in was, we speak about the debt and deficit, right? But cryptocurrency has been spoken about as if it's going to be this kind of savior for Bermuda through the government since the government was elected in July 2017. What are your thoughts on the government's focus on digital currency? Because it seems like it doesn't require many bodies or the amount of people that's going to be required for the economy to sustain.
Well, cryptocurrency was created, maybe I'm giving you too much history, but cryptocurrency was created because of a dissatisfaction with, hopefully I pronounced this right, fiat currency, F-I-A-T, fiat or fiat currency. Okay. Before there was fiat currency, there was what could be called commodity money. So up until the summer of 1971 or 72, you would be able to convert $35 into an ounce of gold. In fact, that's the reason why the US dollar became popular. In the aftermath of the Second World War, some folks met at a place called Bretton Woods in New Hampshire. They came to an agreement that the US would be the currency of choice. In order to convince people to hold that currency, the US said, if you get $35, turn up at Fort Knox, we'll give you an ounce of gold for every $35. In the summer of 1971 or 72, Richard Nixon took the US off of that gold standard. And since then, the US hasn't had that obligation. Since that time, and especially since the financial crisis of 2008, the US has been creating money at such a rate that it would be impossible for them to physically create it. It's all been created electronically, to the tune of like hundreds of billions of dollars a month for a couple of years. And so people got really scared that how could a country just create money out of thin air? People lost faith in the concept of fiat money and thus grew this thing called cryptocurrency, which is based on something real, energy, computing power. Now, the problem with cryptocurrency as a medium of exchange is that it's still difficult for me to walk into my favorite coffee house and buy a macchiato with it. And so currency is still the medium of exchange of choice because it's efficient at me getting my macchiato. So cryptocurrency's got a way to go before it can compete with fiat money. Now, assuming, of course, that fiat money doesn't lose total credibility. Whether or not that will happen, we'll have to see. I mean, the US is still printing money like there's no tomorrow. And you know, as that continues, perhaps people will lose faith in it and we'll have to make the transition to something that isn't controlled by governments. So cryptocurrency is a reaction to the monopoly that governments have to create money. Can Bermuda make a go of it? Well, money is what money does. I mean, you know, if you go to Westgate, they have their own form of money. It's called cigarettes. You go into a concentration camp, people will create money out of anything. You know, money is a weird phenomenon. I love teaching money in my macroeconomics class because people think they know what money is. But the Economist's definition of money is as follows. Money is what money does. And so until cryptocurrency can do the things that fiat money can, it'll, you know, not be totally accepted. Is it a part of an emerging order? Yeah, probably. Will the banking system that relies on fiat money accept it? Well, yeah, there's evidence to suggest that the banking system is having to accept this new concept of cryptocurrency. And like I say, people like it because you can't just create it out of thin air.
Right.
I don't know if that's the question. All right.
It's fine. Before we switch gears, I just want to put out there that I think I want to take a few of your courses because I am like so intrigued. This is amazing. You're great. But my question is, what are your thoughts on the work from Bermuda Certificate, and do you think it will bring enough revenue to be a viable option long term?
Working from Bermuda, it's sort of, the government has had problems with immigration reform, not just this present government, but governments before that. You know, if you remember that the concept of a PRC, a permanent resident certificate holder, that was something that the PLP created. The UBP wouldn't touch it. And we struggle with immigration, with granting people some kind of status in Bermuda. And so I think this government has decided that, you know, it sort of reached the point of almost desperation, and it needed to do something to open the door without getting pushback, massive pushback from the general public. And so I think this is what they've come up with. Will it solve the problem? No, it won't. It's you know, you're still sort of not addressing the real problem, and that is we don't have enough people on island. Now, there's sort of two ways to address that. One is to get the people who have moved off of island back. A lot of the very talented young people who have degrees and professional qualifications, finding a way to get them back on island, and also getting, you know, people who aren't from Bermuda to come here and invest in the place. And I don't think that foreigners are going to come here and invest in the place unless you really can give them something, give them some sort of permanence, as opposed to, well, we'll take your money, but just understand, know your place. You're never going to get status and all that kind of stuff. So it's, I think the government is sort of in a straitjacket with respect to immigration. And, if it doesn't happen this time with the kind of supermajority that the PLP has in Parliament, I don't know if we'll ever sensibly deal with the issue of immigration.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you believe is the number one reason why government has been hesitant to implement much of what was in the SAFE report?
Sage.
Oh, SAGE.
Sorry, SAGE report.
Okay. Well, quite a few pieces have been implemented. So, for example, with respect to, I'm thinking about the privatization and outsourcing part of the SAGE report. The airport has been sort of largely privatized. Civil aviation has been privatized. So there have been pieces. The government has started the process, at least as it relates to sort of privatization, not so much on the outsourcing part. Where they've been really weak is with streamlining the government. Right now we have, 12 ministries and God knows how many departments. The SAGE report, SAGE Commission recommended, I think, something like 8 ministries. We've got 36 MPs, 12 senators, and all of these people. SAGE recommended decreasing that number. You won't be able to decrease the number of parliamentarians without a constitutional conference, but I think it's pretty obvious that 36 people in Parliament, I mean, we used to have 40, but 36, really? I mean, for our population, in many ways, we're overgoverned. And I understand the politics behind having a large cabinet. People help you and you need to reward them for their loyalty. And so politically, that's a really, really difficult thing for us to do, to get the size of the politicians down. And then, of course, there's the size of the actual civil service. I mean, we're talking like 5,000, north of 5,000 employees. That's a question that we're going to have to wrestle with, because a lot of it has to do with what we expect the government to do. What do we expect of the government? Should they be involved in things like housing? Should they be involved in getting the cost of living down? There's so many questions that we as a people need to discuss. And I think sometimes, we in order to, if you ask me a difficult question, psychologically, I have this thing called substitution. So I substitute the difficult question for an easy question. And I think we Bermudians do that a lot, not because we're Bermudians, but because we're human. Difficult questions are hard to address. And it takes a lot of courage, just to sort of have that honest and frank discussion with ourselves without bringing up issues of race and where you're from and all sorts of the other craziness that enters into our discourse. Humans are really difficult people, and maybe that's why I don't leave home very often. I just stay in my cave. I mean, I live with my mother. I'm one of these guys,
But you contribute.
Well, you talked about retirement, and there's something beyond retirement, and it's what I deal with every single day, 24 hours a day, and it's getting old. Mm-hmm. You guys don't want to know about getting old. My mother's got dementia, and my mother was Superwoman, jump over a building in a single bounce. And today, it ain't pretty. So you talk about retirement. Whoa, when you get to the stage where you don't even know who you are,
Yeah.
you think racism is bad, you think classism is bad. I had a godmother. She passed in her 99th year. She made that comment that, she had to deal with religious persecution. She had to deal with classism, racism. But she says, I can't, totally quote her because of censorship. But her thing was old age. You need to get yourself ready. You need to have your families in order because I don't care how much money you got.
Mm-hmm.
In old age, you need someone who's got your back, who's not going to steal your property and put you down, King Edward, and not come and collect you. But I think that's not what you want to do.
No, but this ties into Mr. Simmons because it goes back to the comment that I quoted. Mr. Ball, I think they said his name was Mr. Ball, whereas he said, everyone's out here focused on saving for retirement. And what you're saying is like, it goes right back to what I said about even when we're young to when we're old. The family unit is so important to us in every stage. And I think we become so focused on so many other things that we don't even realize that it all ties together with our finances, right?
Yeah.
We need to make sure we're prepared for that. Sorry, Carla.
No, it's okay. He's hitting us with some jams today. Mr. Simmons, what are your thoughts on the SED suggestion to mandate that a small percentage of private pensions be reinvested in Bermuda as opposed to 100% being allowed to be invested overseas?
Okay, I need to ask you to back up a second. You use some abbreviation, SEED.
That was the question, but I remember who sent it. I think Teresa Stewart. So if she can put the acronym in really quickly, because that was one of the questions that was sent to us.
But the point is, should there be some limits on the amount of money that is sort of moved out?
It says, I'll repeat it. It says, the suggestion to mandate that small percentage of private pensions be reinvested in Bermuda as opposed to 100% being allowed to be invested overseas.
Yeah. Okay. So let's put that into context. The savings rate in Bermuda. I looked at the 2019 GDP data and looking at what's called gross national savings. So if you want to see this, you need to go to the statistics site and look at the GDP data for Bermuda, the most recent year, 2019. And sort of well into the document, there's a table that talks about gross national product and gross national saving. And gross national saving in Bermuda is in the region of $3 billion. And that's on gross domestic product of about 7 billion. So if you do the calculations, like a simple 3 over 7, you get a number that gets, in the ballpark of about 40%. Now, that would suggest that the savings rate in Bermuda is about 40%, $3 billion. And not just in 2019, but in 2018, 2017, 2016, you just go back as far as you can go. So there's a crap load of money that is being saved in Bermuda, and a lot of it ends up trickling into a pension fund. So I think what Teresa Stewart, a former student, very proud of her, is suggesting or saying, why should all of that money make its way into foreign capital markets? And that's a great question. Personally, I think there should be restrictions placed on the amount of money that flows out of Bermuda. Sure, we can take advantage of what's happening in the rest of the world, investing in tech stocks and sort of enjoying the sort of massive increase in value that those companies are seeing. But the other part of me says, so when we want to build an airport, we've got to go overseas to borrow the money to build an airport. When we want to sort of do anything, we go overseas to get the money in order to do it. But the thing is, we generate more than enough savings in Bermuda to sort of maintain our infrastructure. But we don't seem like we believe in Bermuda. Yeah. I don't follow people on what they say. So, someone tells you something, I'm not going to look at what you tell me. I'm going to look at what you do. Your actions speak louder than your words. And Bermudians talk about, this is Bermuda, Bermuda for Bermudians, and so on and so forth. But maybe you need to act like you believe in this country, like you love this country. Put your dollar on the line, invest in Bermuda companies, and one way for Bermudians to invest in Bermuda is through the pension fund. That's really the only savings that 90% of Bermudians have. Yeah. So why can't we have that discussion about, let's take a small piece, 10% maybe, 20%, and mandate that has to be invested in Bermuda.
Yeah.
Now, when the premier and finance minister, back in the day when he fulfilled both portfolios, David Burt, suggested that, he got massive pushback because it's like, what do you mean? You're going to tell me what to do with my savings? It's like, and he backed off of it because he's a politician and he's not going to stand up and tell people what they need to hear. He's going to tell people what they want to hear. And so, we Bermudians, we need to be honest. We need to have some real conversations about our country and our future. You can't be milking the cow, day after day after day after day, and not providing for that cow.
So, Mr. Simmons, can I have one more question, but I have a sub question. We can't ignore the pandemic. If you could answer this briefly, does the pandemic play a role in this year's budget? Because I would think it does, but then you have so many people saying, no, it's bad management or what have you. But should the pandemic be taken into some sort of consideration for where we are?
Well, the pandemic plays a role to the extent that there aren't as many people working. So that means that the number one source of government revenue is payroll tax. In any given year, payroll tax brings in well over $400 million, maybe $500 million in government revenue. Well, it ain't going to happen this year because you've got many people out of work. So government is not going to take in the revenue that they're used to taking in. We're not spending the way we spend. Customs duties is based on spending. I'm not buying as many bottles of wine. Wine is heavily taxed. So the pandemic, yes, is having a profound impact on the revenue that government can take in. It is also having an impact on the spending that government has to do. So, it's got to put out money for an unemployment benefit. But my point is this, is that, we need to expect the unexpected. Yeah. There's a pandemic now. Okay, there was a financial crisis the other day. There was the 9/11. There's always going to be something. Is the government overspending? Well, yeah, but it's not a new phenomenon. But we tend to live beyond our means when we think that the sun will always shine, that rainy days aren't coming. We have to get it in our heads that the rainy day is just over the horizon. When Bermudians build their houses, we overbuild our houses. Why? Because we know a hurricane is coming. One might not come for 10 years, but that doesn't lead us to sort of, we can take a shortcut. We don't need to build our homes as robust as we've done it in the past because we know one is coming. The same thing has to happen with government spending and taxation. We have to build up a nest egg, knowing that catastrophe is right around the corner. Mm-hmm. But because of politics, I need to sweeten the pot in order to get reelected. And in many ways, that's criminal when a politician will sweeten the pot to get elected. And politicians are human. they cheat. They're going to do things that maybe aren't in the long-term best interest of the country.
Yeah,
that's something we've known for a long time. That's in economics we have something called public economics, and it's based on the idea that politicians are human and politicians are going to do things that serve the interest of politicians.
Yeah. I just want to get this question in because it's probably one of the most important that we're going to ask today. Your thoughts on the government's recent 2.5 million scheme to attract investment into the country?
Was that now the okay, that
the Labor Minister, Jason Hayward, announced a couple of weeks ago about the 2.5 million.
That is to do with attracting people to the island. So that's sort of, it's really immigration again. You want to attract people of substance to the island. And you don't want poor people coming. Yeah, you don't want folks coming that don't have jobs. So you want to get, I suppose, high net worth individuals into the island, making some kind of contribution. The PLP is in a straitjacket when it comes to immigration. So they're trying with what they're allowed to do by Alaska Hall. They are trying stuff. Yeah. Is it enough? No. We need to, as a country, have a real discussion about immigration. And I understand why we have problems with immigration. Immigration has been used as a tool of white supremacy in this country. And it's white supremacy is still real in this country. And so the Black population, whenever they hear immigration, what they hear is a sort of watering down, a bleaching, an attempt to sort of thwart the political process. I get that. And those fears have to be dealt with. But we can't get around the fact that, we're losing people. We're losing Bermudians because, we're unwilling to take risks. We're sort of like a deer in headlights. We lack the boldness of sort of previous generations. And Bermudians historically have been really, we've done some stuff in our history that just blows me away. I mean, as a British colony, can you imagine, the gunpowder plot? I mean, I would encourage your listeners to do some research on the gunpowder plot, how Bermudians basically engaged in treason. We supported the Americans in their fight against the British. We broke into the British magazine and stole their gunpowder. It was in St. George's, and then we brought it all the way to Somerset, and we loaded it onto ships and sent it off to George Washington so that he could kick the British's butt. And we got away with it. They had an commission of inquiry, and guess who the head of the commission of inquiry was? The guy that stole the gunpowder in the first place. And the guy that stole the gunpowder in the first place, his sister was married to the governor. I mean, Bermudians have done, talk about, this is not a good word, balls, testicular, whatever. I'm sorry, I'm a sexist. But I mean, talk about being brazen. I mean, that's the kind of attitude that we need right now to say, we're going for it. We're going to be bold. And I don't hear bold ideas. It's like, okay, so we're going to try to attract this person, but we need radical ideas, not this sort of marginal trimming around the edges. We have to go to the heart of the matter. But you got to have imagination. You've got to be willing to make a mistake. Now, the mistakes need to be small. So that's where entrepreneurs come in. Yeah. You want the entrepreneur to get out there and try stuff. So some of my students are running a solar installation project. They got an idea. It may work. It may fail. the upside, I think about being bold. I see these same young men and women in 10 years' time taking this idea global because, climate change, we need to get away from fossil fuels. These young men and women are dealing with climate change. They can take their show of installing solar panels around the world.
But Mr. Simmons, let me cut you off because what you're saying, it's so important, but I want people to really roll with where you're going. And the importance, because you mentioned, and we discussed the other day, entrepreneurship, and you're mentioning students who are literally focusing on an area that's going to fulfill a need. So it's not entrepreneurship because you want to be self-employed and do something that you like. It's entrepreneurship because there's a need for something that's going to solve problems, that's going to give you the opportunity in 10 years to go global. And I think that's the problem. And just to be bold and honest, that we have within the Black community. We think entrepreneurship is something that it isn't. And we don't understand the big difference between being self-employed and doing something that you like and being an entrepreneur and doing something that's fulfilling a need.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what you explained just now without even saying it, but that's where we need to be.
Yes.
Out of time, but I want to just let you know, like, if there's anything you want to leave the audience with as it relates to this budget statement, what should they be prepared for over the next year?
Over the next year, it's going to be a difficult time. I work at Bermuda College. We had an all-employee meeting, and the president broke the news that the budget's been cut, and we're going to have to take a cut in pay and all this kind of stuff. The government is going to have to not offer a lot of services that it normally offers. And so, things like garbage collection, things like the police, many of the things that, the government does, they're going to have a challenge doing it going forward. And so we cannot continue business as normal. I mean, the SAGE report back in 2013 said, look, people, we are in a crisis situation. And that was 2013. 7 years later, we've made some progress, but we lack the boldness to effectively make those changes. And so we need to be really cognizant that government does not change quickly. Government moves at a snail's pace. So before you expect the government to get into something, understand that once they're in, it's very difficult to get out of it. And so we need to temper our expectations of what we want from government. I mean, there are some basic things like law and order, some very basic things like education. But even in those instances, the private sector has a role to play. So, for example, half the people that go to school in Bermuda go to private school. Yeah, we just need to sort of almost like a paradigm shift as to what we expect from the government. And I mean, it really concerns me that I think in a nutshell, we have too high expectations from our government. We as a people, when emancipation came around, government did not help at all. Black folks did it themselves. They created friendly societies and they dug deep. And, we people need to dig deep and not expect someone to bail us out. That is really the Bermudian way. That's what we've been doing for 400 years. But, like they say in the old day, again, another sexist comment, in the old day, they had wooden ships and Iron Man. Today, well, they got iron ships. I would say tissue paper man.
I don't think you tell any lies. And I think, like his politics or not, I think that's something that Mark Bean's been screaming. I mean, the whole do for self, Marcus Garvey, do for self, right? I believe in it. I don't believe, and I'll just be very frank, when I lost my government-funded job at the Bermuda Tourism Authority, it was like, I found myself waiting on government to assist, and I realized, hold on, I'm not this guy. I don't need politics to be successful. I don't need people who are aspiring to be politicians. So I took the initiative to say, you know what? Let me find out what I want to do, what's needed, and let's go and do it. But I almost fell into that trap where I was waiting on the government to save me. And people, basically what Mr. Simmons is saying, they ain't going to save you. They can't save themselves. But Mr. Simmons, thank you so much. We have to run. We'll definitely be having you on, hopefully, at least just more frequently. According to Carla, you're already the most frequent guest, but the audience can't get enough of you. We appreciate you doing this, and we look forward to having you back more.
Well, thank you for asking. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I gotta, my mother keeps a close eye on to me, so she'll make sure that I turn up again.
Thank you. Thank you, and take care of your mother.
I will.
Yeah,
all right.
Take care.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to go a bit over time. We're going to take a quick break and come back. We have Carla's going to give us some inspiration. But before that, it's the Daily Play. We're still going to fill it out. Thanks again to Mr. Simmons for such an important conversation.
Bermuda, do you know the difference between internet and Wi-Fi? Don't worry. Neither did I. Let me break it down to you. Internet is delivered to your modem, which then has to push the Wi-Fi signal into the rest of your home. Do you find that the further you're away from your modem, the weaker your Wi-Fi signal gets? That's because Bermuda's homes are built hurricane tough. It's really difficult for that Wi-Fi signal to reach every room. But you're in luck. Our One Home Wi-Fi solution guarantees Wi-Fi coverage in and around your home with the help of our Eero devices. Plug in the Eero around your home and it will create a mesh Wi-Fi network in every room. Check us out at One today to sign up and make sure you can stream, work, and play from every corner of your home.
Welcome back to the big show. Thanks again to Medical House, One Communications, and Lindo's. It is the Daily Hour. Carla Zul, Jackie Lambert, myself, Jamal Hartman. The great thing about going full screen and putting it on Mr. Simmons, that was probably the most emotional I have been during an episode. And people might be wondering why emotional when it comes to finances, because there's so many things that the average mind doesn't even consider. And I'm glad that he is so open to being so honest. And putting his personal situation with his mother out there. And the truth is, I speak from a Black perspective. I speak from a Black perspective as a Black man. And all of our situations are going to be different. But the truth of the matter is we are born with challenges. We are born with challenges. But it frustrates me to no end that some of us really just do not take these challenges on. We back down, we run from them, and we wait on people to come and save us. We have to do more for ourselves. We have to. And we can't think that once a challenge comes, it's over or someone's hating or taken from us. There was so much to that conversation, but at the end of the day, we have to be more creative. We have to be better. We cannot rely on people who can't help themselves. That's the bottom line. So I'm grateful. And Talent, I saw you made a comment every month. I was going to say that just now, but I didn't want to put him under any sort of pressure. But if we can get Simmons on once a month, I would be happy with that, because the conversation, I learned a lot. I'm sure you all learned a lot, but it's not just about learning, it's about engaging. And every last question we asked today was from the audience, just to give you an idea, because we understand that with Mr. Simmons, a lot of information is going to be shared. And so we may not get to the questions in the audience, and the show is about the audience. So all of the questions were from the audience. So thank you for your participation. Participation. But we're going to have the fun part now, the Daily Play. And then Carla's going to give us some inspiration, and then we'll let you all go for the weekend before we get back in your ears and your faces on Monday. So Daily Play on Fridays, we do the feud. And so Jackie and Carla cheat.
What?
Answer correctly usually.
Don't pay him no mind, Jackie.
So the first question,
intelligent.
help them out, audience. I don't think they're going to get this. Help them out with this. If you could be a doctor for a day, tell me something you'd look forward
The pay.
to. She got it. That's number one.
Oh, that's not what I was thinking.
She got it. Bomb for Jackie. What were you thinking, Carla?
Digital rectal exam.
No, that's not even here.
I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
No.
All right, next. Name something listed on a motel sign that might attract people to stay there.
The price.
Bacon.
Free food.
Hot tub.
All of those answers are here, but they're not number one.
Free cable. I'm never.
Free cable is number one. Crazy, right? All right. Final question of the morning, folks. Help them out. Tell me something that has water in it.
A pool.
Number one. You all.
Let's see, rich people. You got that one time.
You all on fire. Carla, give us some inspiration, please.
Way to go, Jack.
Thank you.
Victory is sweetest when you've known defeat. Malcolm S. Forbes.
All right. Victory is sweeter. Well, you do learn more lessons from defeat and failure, or at least you should. Any final words on today's episode, Jackie?
Like everybody's saying, I think you should come on more often. Once a month is needed because an hour is just not enough.
All right.
The more information he gave me, the more questions I had.
All right, Carla, what you got?
Let's not only dig ourselves out, let's stick together and support each other so we can do it as a collective.
Indeed, indeed. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode with Mr. Simmons, please give us a like, smash a like, love, just give us some reaction, share this episode, make sure that as many people as possible are a part of this conversation. Thanks again to our partners, Medical House One Communications and Lindos, for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again, not tomorrow. On Monday. Carla probably want to be back tomorrow. She misses me when we're not here. She's Carla Zul. That's Jackie Lambert. I'm Jamal Hartman. Make it a great weekend. Peace.